Welcome back, biologists. So we've been discussing our cardiovascular system, and I've mentioned several times that this system releases nutrients into the body and picks up waste. But now we're finally going to talk about how that happens. So our capillaries are flowing through our body. They're these tiny little vessels that come from the arterial, blood goes through it, then from the capillaries back to the venule. However, although we have lots of capillaries in our body, only about 5 to 10% of them are actually open at any given time. Usually parts of your body like your heart, your brain, your kidneys that need to be full, that they have all of their capillaries filled to capacity all the time because of they're functioning all the time. But in other sites, blood supply might vary. So you might not have full flow through the capillaries of your digestive system until you've eaten. And then when you've eaten something, they start flowing to help that digestive system work. And some different ways that we control what is going through a capillary is one through the arteriole itself. So how open or shut that arteriole is will affect how much blood is coming through to the capillaries. But also there are sphincters. So these are little sphincters that can shut blood off from non-essential areas. So it still has this thoroughfare channel that allows blood to get to the venule, but all of these sphincters are cutting off the blood flow to diminish the amount of blood. That doesn't mean that part of the body is not getting any blood. There's still other capillaries that will be coming and supplying blood to that part of the body, but that not all of them will be turned on. Within that capillary, we have a very thin wall. If you remember, when we compared the walls of an artery and a vein and a capillary, it's a very thin layer of cells in the basal lamina, and that's it. So exchange of substances is going to happen between blood and interstitial fluid right through that thin wall of the capillaries. There's blood pressure here in the capillary that's going to help push fluid out. That's going to have the highest blood pressure at the arterial end, where that artery is sending in a lot of pressure, and that pressure tends to dissipate as the blood is moving through. So you see less and less blood pressure moving things out. There's also osmotic pressure. That's caused by a lot of proteins that are dissolved in the blood that bring liquid back in. If you have forgotten how osmosis works, you may want to go back and read. I think it's chapter 7. Read that textbook section or look through your notes to review osmosis. But that buildup of proteins in the blood at a higher concentration than is in the interstitial fluid tends to bring fluid back into the blood. But on average, there is a net loss of fluid from the capillaries going into the interstitial fluid. Your lymphatic system helps bring a lot of that back into the blood flow so that we're not losing all of our liquid. What short-term changes in cardiovascular function might best enable skeletal muscles to help an animal escape from a dangerous animal? Okay, so two forces are acting on the capillary to regulate fluid movement and exchange. One is blood pressure, just that hydrostatic pressure from the blood inside the capillary, and one is osmotic pressure, which is that pressure that is when the interstitial fluid is moving by osmosis into the capillary. And at the arterial end of the capillary, the blood pressure is greater than osmotic pressure, so you have a net movement outward of blood. At the venous end, it's starting to get more equal. So in general, nutrients and water in the blood are going to move into the tissues. However, our red blood cells are not going to move out of there. See how they can't really fit through these little cracks here between the cells? The red blood cells stay in here. They release the nutrients which go into the body. In the middle of the bed, blood pressure, the hydrostatic pressure, and osmotic pressure are going to be more equal. So gases can still be exchanged, oxygen released, and carbon dioxide picked up, which we'll come and talk about a little bit more when we get to our respiratory system. There's not a lot of net fluid movement. And at the venous end, when we get to the very venous end, the osmotic pressure will release in a net increase in water moved back in and waste moved back into the capillaries from the interstitial fluid back into the capillaries. And that last 10% of water is going to be picked up by the lymphatic system. That is these little green tubes here. They function a lot in our immune system, but they also will pick up water. And eventually, those lymphatic vessels will link back up to the blood system to bring that fluid back to the blood. So these fluids and proteins, as they're coming into the lymphatic vessels, they form lymph. And lymph will go to lymph nodes where it's filtered. So if there's something like an infection, it gets filtered at that lymph node. An infection won't pass through, but the water will pass through back into the veins. Okay, we're going to come back and talk about the different stuff that makes up our blood in our next video. So I will see you soon. I hope that those concepts, they sometimes can be a little bit hard to, especially if you're struggling to recall osmosis from before. But I hope that that works out for you in your head. Let me know if you have any questions and we can sit down and discuss it or email it. And I'll see you soon. Bye.